What do we have? We have Tuesday, April 30th, 2024. I've never done the dates on any of them before, but it's occurred to me that it might matter someday. I don't know. So welcome to Quilting Business Success. Tonight, we have a very special guest with us, Alex Wilhelm, and we're going to give a few minutes for people to come in. And so let me introduce myself real quick. I'm Andrew Weaver. And my co-host today is yes, it's Bobby Ware, the very famous and very notorious Bobby Ware.
Yes.
And as we proceed along, and I'll probably say this one other time as well, if you are listening and if you're listening live with us and you would like to ask a question of Alex, you can do that with the little Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. Just type your answer or your question in there, and then we will read it when we notice the little red thing showing up on the bottom of our screen. If you enjoy this, I would encourage you to subscribe to the podcast so that it will download them all or watch them all on YouTube or do something like that. But then also consider giving us a rating, a review, writing a review, or sharing it with somebody. If you've got quilty friends who might be really interested in this information, share it with them, because it's not the sort of thing that people probably even go searching the internet to find. But this information can be really, really helpful to people who are trying to find their own way in life. So let's get started. Bobby, do you want to kick it off?
Yes, I will. Alex, we're glad to have you here. Let's just start out by getting the basics out of the way. Where are you located? Where do you live?
I'm in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Eau Claire,
So,
Wisconsin. So has spring arrived in Wisconsin yet?
yes, I say that tentatively because last year on April 22nd, we got 16 inches of snow. So I think that it's here now, but it's Wisconsin.
Gotcha. Well, as most of the people watching this, you are looks like in a younger demographic than a lot of the people we frequently see on here. So
Yeah, a little bit.
tell us how long have you been doing this long arming thing?
So I have actually I've been long arming for 2 years, and I've actually only known quilting existed in the last 6. So I
Only
like,
knew quilting existed for the last 6 years,
yeah,
but now you know
I
that it has existed longer than that. You do know.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
How did you get introduced to quilting the first time?
So I've always loved fabric. I've always been super crafty. I crocheted since I was 8, cross stitch, did everything else, and I loved fabric, but to me, fabric meant clothes, meant bags, and that was not something that I was into. But I always loved looking at it. Um, and then one of my local quilt shops has like a gather and stitch, or they used to, and you just go in and you do your craft. So I figured out how to knit. So I was knitting, and the woman across from me was quilting, and she was sewing Moda's Village, the little houses. And I was like, that's interesting. What is this? And I just kept staring at it. I'm like, I can do this. And next day, stole my mother's sewing machine, bought all the supplies, and my first quilt was Elizabeth Hartman's Pineapple Farm. Not a beginner quilt, but I was like, oh, I got it. And I just did it. And I was like, yep, here we go.
I have to confess that my first quilt was not a beginner quilt either. It had a ton of applique, but it was super cute. It was awesome.
Yeah. And I've always, my biggest thing with all of my crafts is like, what do you do with it when it's done? Like, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, oh, I can make like all these cool little pictures with cross stitch and stuff, but like, what do you do with it when it's done? I can only have so many scarves, so many gloves or whatever. But blankets, you can never have enough blankets.
Especially in Wisconsin.
So you were already had a taste for fabric type stuff, and you just happened to be in this quilt shop? Is that how
Well, it was like a quilt shop that also sold yarn. So like it sold yarn and fabric, and they had stitch nights where you could just
Okay.
do whatever. So yeah,
So you kind of accidentally discovered quilting at that point. Okay.
yeah.
So then 4 years pass, and then at some point you decided to long arm. Tell us how that happened.
So right away with quilting, I was immediately trying to free motion on my domestic, like very basic singer trying to do stuff. And I was like, just could see other quilting, and I'm like, it's interesting how something is actually square, but it looks like it's circle. And I was like, I don't understand. And I went to a retreat that a woman who was there works for a long armor. And I was like, oh, and they're like, yeah, like, but you got to try it first because some people don't like it. It's a very physical job, and sometimes it's not for everyone. And kept talking to her more, and she was like, hey, well, maybe you can come over and like try it out for a few days and see what you think. And I said, okay. So I went to Paige Johnson's shop over in Eagan, Minnesota, and that was who my friend worked for. And I was like, I don't even know who this lady is, but this is crazy. 5 machines there. I was there for 3 days from like 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. and just going. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, and it was so cool. And so not only was I watching like and helping out doing edged edges, Paige was working on a custom. It was this beautiful like stained glass like applique thing that someone did, and it was just so cool. And it was kind of like in the hopes of like, hey, maybe we'll move to Minnesota and like I could work there and then work with Paige and do that. And I'm like, that sounds amazing, but it's an hour and a half away. It's a different like financial bracket. My husband had just gotten a promotion, and I was like, I don't know. And also like really big shoes to step into. Like she's already been doing this for 20 years and she already has this amazing clientele and everything. So like I'm not there. I've always been crafty, but I've never been creative. So I was like, I need to learn how to do this. So then my husband said, why don't you make your own business so that way you can grow with it? You know, do something that you can do with it. And
So
as you
he's the
get
one that
better,
came
so
up with the idea.
mm-hmm. And I was
Okay.
like, okay. And he seemed on board with it. So then, um, yeah, so then I came up with a plan. I'm very thankful. I'm surrounded by business people in my life. So my dad owned his own business my entire life. My mom's an office manager. One of my close friends own their own business. I know like 2 other people who own their own businesses. Like I'm surrounded by it, and I've always been a manager in all realms of life. So I I mean, I came up with like cost of it, costing everything out, like thread, batting, time, how much should I charge per square inch? What is it going to cost for startup? What's the cost of a machine? What are materials I'm going to need? What's my average yearly cost for like rotary cutters, needles, bobbins, like everything. Like, I mean, I had it all broken down to a science. And after that was all broken down, I went to the loan officer and he immediately was like, you're good. I got you. You got this. And I was like, cool.
Mhm.
Um, and
Business
then,
plans are extremely helpful. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so after that, like literally the day it got signed over, I booked my flight to Texas and confirmed that I was buying a long arm. And my husband and I flew to Texas, hopped in a U-Haul, drove somewhere past Dallas, and packed up the long arm in the U-Haul, and then drove it back up to Wisconsin.
Hmm. Wow,
Yeah.
that's an adventure.
Yep.
Yep. So did you guys, so you got one off an ad or something and you took it apart, you put it in the U-Haul, drove it all the
Yeah.
way?
Oh, well, we had because I was debating on getting a brand new one. So I was talking with like Kathy Kleinschmidt, but I ended up finding a really good one. It was only 2016, Gamel Statler, like had snappers, had a bobbin winder, I mean, had a bunch of stuff already, like with it, had the oil, had case, like 40 bobbins, like it was really well set up. So I was like, all right, had even the light bar too and everything. I was like,
Mhm.
awesome. So, like, yeah, I found that and I was like, okay, we're gonna do this instead of getting a brand new one. But then we contacted Linda's Electric Quilters, and they're like, we don't do this anymore, but like we can do it. So then I paid them to tear it all down.
Uh-huh.
And
So you
then
had
I
to
had set up an appointment with Gamble to have them come set everything back up.
awesome. Okay.
But, but Wisconsin, we were totally fine, no snow on the ground, and February 22nd, freak snowstorm completely covered the roads and the tech couldn't come out. So they got snowed in, couldn't come. So I was stuck, and then I was like, well, it already took like how long for us to schedule this, so it might be a while for us to get someone else out there because no one's by me because you guys are in Missouri, like, you know.
Well, our tech's in Wisconsin, but
Yeah, but he lives like farther south and like, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I was like, you know what? I have the information on how to set this up. So I'm going to try setting it up and see how far I get, see what happens. And I did it.
And it wasn't
So,
that hard.
no,
Yeah.
And this is a
I'm,
Statler, is that right?
yes. Yep.
A
So
lot
yep,
of
got
times
it all
people
set up.
don't realize that moving a machine, like we can definitely help people and we do it for them all the time, but it is like moving anything else. The job looks really, really big when you look at it from, just like looking at the whole job. But if you just do it one piece at a time, it's not that bad.
No.
So
I
yeah,
mean, there's only one heavy part in the entire machine system, and it's that main three-tier bar, like the shelf
and
where the
when we move them,
head
we take
sits.
those into three pieces. So we don't even move that all together because
Oh,
that's too much
fine.
for one person to handle.
Yeah, no, mine was all together. It was really hard trying to get those up the stairs.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
So
Um,
so how how did you end up why did you go with a Gamel to start out with?
um, well, because that's what Paige had.
Okay.
I saw her using it. I saw the computer system, saw how easy it was. I mean, I understood it and just was like, yep, this makes sense. Okay, cool. All right.
Let me ask you, when you were working on her machine, did you find it in
Machines. She has 5.
yeah, did you find them intuitive? I mean, were you able to catch on? Do you think that it's something that people can catch on to with those machines?
Um, I mean, I think so, but I like I think so, but there are a lot of things that I think are really easy and some people don't. And I think part of like the computer aspect of it, because I'm the younger generation, I understand computers, I
Yes.
understand a CAD system. Like I already know Control V is, Control C and Control V. I know that's copy and paste. I can do those shortcuts and I know those little things already that make my life easier. And I can just pick up on those things a little bit faster.
Yeah, I
But
find with your generation, computer things tend to be more intuitive, second nature,
right.
because you kind of grow up with them. And
Hmm.
that's an important thing where like new owner training that we have available can come in handy for people that don't have that second nature like you do. So
Yeah.
anyway, continue with your story there.
So I was going to ask you, how did you know there was enough long arm quilting business in your town to support a new long arm quilter? Because this was a big investment. It was money that you didn't actually have. You had to borrow it. So,
I didn't really, actually. So I had never actually gotten anything long armed before. I actually had only gotten one thing long armed. Um, and like I kind of knew that there were long armors around, but like didn't know any of them, kind of saw cards, but didn't know anything about it. And I was not worried about just here. Um, I actually like, and I'll go into it a little bit later, but I actually marketed the entire state of Wisconsin. I was
And
not just focused on here.
how did you do that?
So I Googled every single quilt shop that I could find in Wisconsin, had it listed by city, phone number, everything. And then I called every single one of them and said, "Hey, do you have a long arm quilter? Okay, who does your shop samples? What's their price? what do you do? Who do you normally recommend? Like, and I just got their information from them. If someone had a designated long armor or a long arm system in their area, I crossed them off. So anyone who didn't have a designated person that they went to, I wrote them on my list and said, I'm going to visit the shop and say, hey, here are my samples. Here are some of my cards. Would you please recommend my business? Because you have actually seen my work. And then a couple of them, whoever had like 5 shops who had really big online presence, I said, hey, I am offering you a free quilt to do for you, to show you my work, to hang in your shop, and for you to post online saying that I did this for you.
That seems logical, doesn't it?
Logical and yet very impressive.
Yeah. So
So how did
I
that turn out for you?
uh I mean honestly, like it was really cool because I had visited so many shops that I didn't know existed. So that was really cool. Um a couple of the
I
shops
would
like I
imagine you would have had several good connections out of that, right?
some of them like the shop that is like back home from like where I grew up, like that one I'd visited a couple of times, so like they knew me and they were very excited about all of it. And then even just like one lady, she was just so excited for me. I was like, you know what, I want to do a quilt for you, like I like you. Like let me do one for you and stuff. So I honestly like I probably haven't really gotten much from all of that, but I right away was like, I want my reach to be bigger than just here. And then it also helped with quilt shows. I'd never actually gone to a quilt show before until I was a vendor at one. So I'd go to quilt shows, have quilts all around me, and show pictures of quilts that I've done on a computer on a TV screen and just be like, yep, here's stuff that I've done. And they're like, what do you like? First, I actually had to like very clarify being like, I'm not selling the system because people would side eye me and like totally walk away. And I'm like, nope, I'm not selling the system. I'm selling myself. I'm selling my business. So
Hmm.
having to like get past that and just being like, yep, I'm just here. I'm selling me. Just me.
Hmm. So, have you got an idea of how you're doing with like paying off your machine? Because, a lot of times people keep track of how they're doing.
Well, mine's a little bit rocky. So back to the story of first getting my long arm, right?
Sure.
Set
Okay.
it up myself, got it all going, got my first quilt on there, did the whole first quilt, was checking over the back of it, and my knee nudged the controller, like literally just the lightest tap, and it shut off. I went, that's weird. Wouldn't turn back on. Wouldn't turn back on. Kept getting an error message. So contacted Gamble and, took a while. Eventually the guys came out and you guys went, we don't know what's wrong. And I was like, well, what's that light shining right there? And you said, what? And every time you turned it on, one of the rectifiers in the controller was dislodging. And when I bumped it, fully dislodged it and sent an arc through the entire system and fried it.
Ooh.
That is
So,
extremely special.
yes.
Hmm.
So,
Wow.
brand new Galil motor, rectifiers, Z encoder, Y encoder, thread brake sensor, needle up bar, brand new computer.
That added
Yeah,
a little to the cost of the system.
yes. So that was not fun because so it was like
Would that have been about $5,000?
7.
Seven. Oh, the computer. That's right. Seven.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and it really sucked because it took 8 hours the first day and 8 hours the second day, which then it took another 2 weeks after the first one to like have
Yeah.
time to come back.
Oh, that's a lot of parts to replace. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And like, I mean, it sucked because I originally was like, I'm gonna get these quilts done. I'm gonna go on my marketing tour. I'm gonna do all this stuff. But then I didn't even have a quilt done. I couldn't do anything to show anyone my work. I couldn't even do any advertising. I couldn't practice. I couldn't do anything. So then I'm like, what the heck am I gonna do? Like, my loan already started. Like, you know, and like I did my loan where I would have, the cost of the machine. I bought mine for 27,000, and I got my loan for what, like 32,000 or something like that. Um, and I did that so that way I could have 6 months of payments in the bank, like backup, just in case if anything happened. And sure enough, something happened. So once my machine finally got fixed and was able to run, I that's when I like quick knocked out my samples, and then I spent a week traveling Wisconsin showing everyone everything that I had.
Yeah, I would have been panicked.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough. What is that? Murphy's Law? If something can go
Yeah, yeah.
wrong, it will.
Yeah.
If it can happen, it will. Yes,
Right.
that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, it
So
was insane.
Now, a lot of times you buy something without a warranty and it turns out just fine. Like lots of
Hmm.
times. Dang, that
Well,
sure got you.
yeah.
wow.
Well, then the next part that sucked too is so obviously freak accident, whatever happened. Well then I was trying to do a quilt and I couldn't get my tension to be right for the life of me. And it wasn't working. Well, then eventually I found out I had the old style bobbin winder, and she had the tension set so tight on the bobbin winder, it was not only stretching my thread, it was warping my bobbins, setting inconsistent tension in the machine. And not only that, my needle height was wrong. So then my hook timing was wrong. So then my hopper and timing and hook, it was all wrong.
It sounds like you've learned a lot in these last couple years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I know every inch of my machine now.
Yeah,
Everything.
I bet you wouldn't get caught off guard by your needle height being off or anything like that these days.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it was frustrating. It's like I thought getting this machine, I thought it would, because she used it, it was fine, but then just having to learn how my machine is and taking it brand new and essentially just starting over from scratch. I was like, it we're
Yeah.
back at base zero. We need to figure out what they like. He likes. He's a man. His name is Studley.
This is your machine's name?
Yeah, Studley.
Nice, nice. I like that. I like that. So at this point, when you first started, were you was quilting your sole occupation then at this point?
Nope. I still have another job. So I'm a waitress on the weekends. Um, and sometimes I pick up more shifts. And like last year, I had a third job too, where I was, worked at Target for a little bit. Because, I am still just getting people. It's not always consistent. And the other part that makes it really hard is, we were talking about before we started, like, oh, you could have less sleep. I have a sleep disorder, so I can't do that. So like I'm always tired, and then it's hard trying to work and be productive and being at home and stuff like that. So it's sometimes a weird balance to try to find.
If you had to guess how many hours per week you spend doing customer quilts, what would you say that's at right now?
Right now, I'm pretty good where I spend probably like I want to say 20 to 30 hours a week, I think. I want to
That
say that.
that's a good place to be in.
Yeah. Like life has been crazy recently, but like now I'm finally back to having a full open schedule. So like I was in my room working all day today, bright and early, 9 a.m.
Mhm.
Never do that.
Nose to the grindstone.
Yep.
So do you do mostly edge to edge, or do you also do custom quilting?
I do edge to edge and I do custom. Um, Custom has been a lot of fun, and that that has actually been incredible because um so first year of me starting, I had a friend was like, "Oh, you long arm, like my friend's into quilting again, so let me get you information, another young millennial like me." So she had done Nebula, Jaybird's Nebula, and beautiful, and she was like, I want you to do something custom. I want you to go all out. I want it to be awesome. And I said, cool. So I got the Sweet Dream Studio like design kit, and I was like, okay. And it turned out really great. And then she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna put it in the Marshfield show because that's where I used to go with my grandma when I was younger." And I was like, "Okay."
I
And I was
was
like,
gonna ask if it was gonna go in a show. Yeah, okay.
"Well, yeah." So I mean, so the first I had never gone to a quilt show, so we had a show here in Eau Claire at Chippewa, and it is just a voter's choice, and you just put up your quilt and you can vote on whichever one you liked and whatever. Well, the Marshfield show, you had to pay like $5, and I was like, okay, like whatever. Just figured normal entrance fee stuff and just whatever. And I was like, oh, while I'm there, while the quilt's there, I might as well be a vendor there. So I signed up to be a vendor. And I remember setting up my booth and getting everything all set. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go try to look at Nebula and just see it hanging up because it's so cool. And I turned the corner and looked straight down the hallway down to like where all the quilts were, and there was the Nebula there with ribbons on it. I was like,
Mhm.
what? So I ran over and we won a second in our category of a two-person quilt, and then I won best machine quilting.
Oh, wow.
Nice,
This
nice.
was October of 2022 when I got my machine in February of 2022.
And you had shed a lot of tears already by that point over your
Oh
quilt.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, your story is about as rough as I've ever heard.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I was just like, I was like, oh my God, like I won. And they're like, yeah, like this is super awesome. I was like, cool. And then I was like, I didn't know this was the judge show. And they're like, oh yeah. And I was like, so who judged it? Like, are they here? Like, can I talk to them? And they're like, oh, well, it was Allison so and so. And I was like, oh, like, is she here? And they're like, no, she's back in Madison. I was like, what? And they're like, well, like, the judges just come up and they judge it and then they go home. I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, the, National Quilt Show judge. And I'm like, excuse me, what? Like, it was actually judged by like not just like some Joe Schmo, like, it was actually judged by someone who knew, like, this. And they're like, yeah, and you won money. I'm like, excuse me, what? So I'm like, I'm just
Uh-huh.
didn't understand any of this world at all yet. And then the craziest part too. So I'm there looking at my quilt on the wall and I'm freaking out. Right next to mine, that one best of show, was the custom stained glass quilt that I saw Paige Johnson working on. Right
Mm,
next to mine.
Wow.
mhm.
And I was like, what? Like they're right next to each other. Like what? Like what? Just
That
I
sounds
couldn't
like
understand.
it. Did you turn a corner right at that point and somewhere inside yourself?
Well, I was like, I mean, I've been barely doing it for 6 months. Like what?
She's flummoxed. She has no words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was incredible. I still, I mean, obviously, I can't even like fully explain what I was feeling because it's like I'm this new person. Like I didn't even know I was judged. I just made this quilt and sure, okay. Didn't know it was judged, didn't know if it was anything. And then not only did I win Best Machine Quilting, but right next to mine, the woman who taught me won Best of Show. And my quilt's next to hers because it also won Best Machine Quilting. And I'm just like, I don't understand what's happening.
It seems to me like you're both very lucky in some ways and extremely unlucky in other ways. But together with that, you have a lot of hard work and
Mm-hmm.
dedication. And in life, there's people that do get lucky, and that's all they have going for them. But the person who works hard will always get farther than the person that doesn't. So I think you have to, you know, you have to give yourself credit where you've earned it.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
you worked hard on that quilt.
I like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, it took a lot of work. It was cool, like, doing this. And
But it
then
was
it was so
enjoyable.
funny. Right. But it was so funny because people would walk by and they'd be like, oh, and they're like, wait, didn't you do one that quilt there? And I'm like, uh-huh. And they're like, you did? And I was like, mm-hmm. And they're like, but how long you been doing this? I'm like, 6 months. They're like, but you've done this before, right? I'm like, nope, nope. I was like, I don't have an answer. I was like, I don't know. But it's like, I mean, it's completely just like, all right, I guess you're always so critical of yourself and being a perfectionist. Like I'm always been super type A, and it's like, okay, I guess this is actually like legit. This is something real.
And it sounds like the hardship that you had starting out, you didn't let that just knock you down. It sounds like in a lot of ways you just doubled down and just continued on doing what needed to be done.
Well, it's not like I really could do much after that. Like it's like I have this giant loan now too that I need to pay for. So
Mm-hmm.
there, I
Did
have no
you had to
choice
do?
but to go forward and keep working. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Wow.
So I'm looking over some of the other questions that we ask, and it's like some of them are not a little bit off the story of what your story is. Uh, on your custom and your edge to edge, you got some attention right away for some of the custom work that you did because of the ribbon. I imagine some customers would seek you out for that custom work. Are you doing like half your time is edge to edge and half is custom, or how would you say that balance is?
the balance is whatever happens.
Whatever
So
comes in the door.
what? So in uh the last couple months, I've actually I stepped back from serving a little bit where now I'm only on the weekends because I've actually gotten more business and getting lots of edge to edges. Actually, after after my wedding, so in September, I think at one point I had 13 quilts at my house. And
Mhm.
I was like, what the heck am I doing?
Mhm.
Um,
Making money is what you're doing.
I have,
Mm.
well, yeah, but I'm like, okay, guess I need to buckle down. Um, and yeah, so like right now I'm working on some customs, but it's kind of like the whole last week before was like, all right, well, I'm gonna knock out a couple of edge to edges and then I'm gonna work on some custom. And like it's also trying to multitask because as a server you obviously have to multitask in everything that you do, so trying to be like, okay, while this edge to edge is running, I'm prepping up my next quilt, I'm making sure I have the design picked out, I have the thread color picked out, I
Right.
designing my custom one, figuring out what I'm doing and trying to keep it so I'm constantly moving.
And because you have just one machine, you have to be cognizant of being ready to move it forward when it's ready to advance the
Keep
quilt
that
or
machine running.
get a new bobbin or whatever that is. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I would
So
love to have two machines, one just for edge to edge and one for custom, so that way I can be doing it simultaneously.
let's get you one with a warranty this time, even if it is
Yes.
Yes.
used. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That would
Yeah.
have been so nice to have on that first one.
So do you what's your edge to edge rate, your basic per inch rate?
So I have two prices based on if they supply the batting or if I supply the batting. So if I supply the batting, it's 2.25 cents per square inch. And if they supply the batting, it's 2.1 cents per square inch. But, but I have like a thing for like marketing that if you're a new customer, you get 15% off
Mhm.
your first quilt. And
Okay.
then if you recommend someone, like Bobby, if you recommend Andrew and Andrew comes to me, then I go, great, Andrew, who recommended you? Bobby. All right, Bobby, you get another 15% off your next
Okay.
quilt.
Very nice.
Yeah, try to get that spider web going and
Mhm.
recommending people and
Right.
And what about the custom um, uh,
Do you have a
price?
per hour rate that you target for, or
it is so hard to figure out.
you're pretty new
Um,
at this, and so it's hard to know. You probably have sometimes that you vastly underestimate how many hours are going to go into a quilt.
oh yeah. Like I mean, I just did a quilt and I was like, oh, I can charge this per square inch. And then I was like, that is not what my brain was saying this is worth. And then when I calculated by hours, then that more so made it what I was thinking it was worth. And then like I talked to other long armors and being like, what would you say for like what would you charge for this quilt? And um it's obviously being new, it's hard to fine line, but just trying to kind of gauge an idea of like how much. But there are some people who are just like, yeah, do whatever, like, cool. And I'm like, okay, sounds good.
So how do you
But
start up? Did you try to figure out how many hours you think, or you go by the square inch, or what?
so like one custom I
Sounds
did
like it's
five.
still a work in progress there.
Oh yeah, like I mean it definitely is. Like it because the first one I did 5 cents per square inch, but it was a lot more open space. It was all computerized and very easy. And then I had the nebula, and then that one I was like, okay, this one's a lot more dense and a lot more stitching. So I did 7 cents per square inch. Then I just did another custom where it was a lot of free motion, a lot of ruler work, a lot of stuff. So I did that one by like 10, I think I did 10 cents per square inch or something. But like that one ended up being like $1,000. And that she kind of was like, I was not expecting this. So then I kind of had to be like, all right, I have to figure something out. And then I just had another, I mean, then the other one, it was a 56 by 56 quilt. And I was like, took me a while because I did free motion, I did some computer work, but like, it still took me a while. So I was like, that one's 450, but even though it's like it's tiny compared to like the other one that I did, but it
Mhm.
yeah, so like I'm doing one right now and I don't know what I'm even gonna charge.
I will comment that in all lines of work, not just long arm quilting, um, young people in general are never the estimator. Like if you're having a contractor come out to do something and they've got a crew of a bunch of young guys, they always send the old guy to estimate because it's something that it's just really hard to do accurately.
Hmm.
Um, you have to, foresee all the things that are going to go wrong. So you're doing fine. You'll be fine. Yeah, I mean,
I'm
it's these learning experiences,
Mhm.
the scars that build up the calluses.
well, yeah, and like uh I mean, it's like the first two quilts that I did, those were all computer, and that can be sometimes easy. Like, yes, the nebula was very dense, and it took me 3 weeks, but it's like you program the computer, you let it go, it runs for a little bit, you program the computer, you let it run, and it's good. Then it's like the free motion, the quilt that I have going in shows this year, it's like at the beginning, there were 42 stars, and at the beginning, one star took an hour to do. And by the end of the quilt, it took me 20 minutes. Like, I mean, it's still
Yeah.
something I'm learning. It's still something that I'm getting better at, getting more proficient at. And it's learning learning what to do too. Cause like with the last quilt that I did, it was like I could have done it this way and this way and this way, and then it would have been a lot faster and easier. But then I didn't because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of making it up. And then hindsight, I'm like, oh yeah, that would have been a lot easier, lot less ties. Like,
Mhm.
With every one of these experiences that goes by, you're gaining valuable experience.
yeah.
You know,
Then it's hard when someone's like, can you tell me a price on what this will be? And I'm like, no, not really.
we actually had somebody writing a question on the Q&A about a price for a type of quilt, but I had to ask her to clarify the question. I was going to ask you, Alex, tell me about I mean, you've had quite a set of challenges and a very exciting last couple years. Tell me about the people that are supporting you. Who do you really need to mention here who has made a difference?
So obviously my husband, he drove the U-Haul like most of the time, and I was terrified. At one point, I remember being like, honey, like, why are you driving like this? And he's like, I have a $40,000 machine back here. And I went, you're doing great. Good. All right. Yep, you're fine. I'm gonna shut up right now. But I mean, he's been great supporting me and like, especially when like the machine broke down, like, obviously that's a giant chunk of cash, like, but he understands like this is my business and I need to work hard. And I'm like, well, I kind of don't want to do things like, should you though? Should you really be working? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, then you go do that. Um, Christine Nelson from Frogfoot Quilts. She so like when my machine broke down was March, which is like Instagram's Quilt Fest, and I had posted something about like my machine being broken. So she reached out to me and we hit it off immediately. And we're like, I mean, we talk all the time. And she helped me with so much of like my tension issues and just like, how do I do this? One of my first customer quilts was like a horrible sideways, all on the bias mess and needed to be eased and everything. And she walked me through it. And it was like all bias, all mismatched, had pleats in it, had 1/4 inch thick batting, and it had minky backing. And it was like a king size quilt. I was like, what am I doing?
Nice.
Um, Obviously, like Paige Johnson, like amazing that I got to learn from her and just I still
Yeah.
go to retreats with her and just picking at her brain and asking her questions and stuff like that. Um, and honestly, like anyone that I have talked to, like one of the questions I got in the thing is like what's your biggest thing? And it's like one, learn your machine, because thank God I know my machine now, but and the other thing is literally talking to everyone, because I have made so many connections from serving, being a server, and just somehow like weaseling it in there, being like, oh yeah, by the way, I own my own business. And turns out the regulars that came in every Friday night got the same food every time. They own a website company, so they built my website for me. Like,
Wow.
and just then turns out that they're actually best friends with the loan officer that I had. And he's like, yeah, continue to bring your quilts in. I want to see them. I want to show everyone else. Like, he's like, he's like, yep, just
The
talk about it.
networking has been really big for you.
Yeah.
I just looked up in case anybody wants to check it out. I do believe that the episode that Christine Nelson was on is episode 26, if I'm not mistaken. So if somebody wants to go check out her story, it's there.
Hmm.
So and I was wondering, I checked out your website earlier, but I forget what the URL was. What's the address of it?
Captivating threads.
Captivatingthreads.com. That's right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so the question that I had, oh gosh, I don't know if I can see it. Okay, here it is. So Marcia asks, how much would you charge for a double wedding ring quilt, 104 by 94? And then I asked a clarifying question, and she said custom using digital, 4 different digital patterns. And so that's a good question after you had just told us how hard it is to estimate.
Would you say 104 by
104
You're
by
putting her on the spot here.
94. I know. Well, customers do that. You'll be
Yeah.
bringing them their dessert at the table and they're like, hey, so how much would it be to do a double wedding ring
Yeah.
like
with 4 different digital patterns? That doesn't sound too bad. 4 different patterns.
no.
She's figuring it up on the show as we talk here.
And then
Because
Karen,
I actually do have a double wedding ring quilt that I have in my closet that I have to do a custom on, but she wants super intricate, like fun floral, big, bold, like stuff. So that I'm still like working on designing. But I feel like if it was just a double wedding ring, doing
custom. Yeah.
just doing that custom and having that, like probably depending on like how dense, like maybe I don't know, maybe 7 cents per square inch. Uh,
My gut was telling me $500, but that might be a little low.
like I mean, I don't know. I guess I'd have to like see the design, see how dense it is, and like what actually is it. But if it's
Yeah.
not that hard, like I can see like that would come up to be 684.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But like I mean, if it's not something super crazy, then I mean it easily could be 104 by 94 times 0.05. Yeah, if it was 0.05, it would be 488.8.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Giving you
If it
some
was 5 cents.
on the go training here.
That's not everybody can even figure out how to change back these days. So you're doing good. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
I think she is the first person we've had on the show that's actually figured out a price while on the show.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah.
impressive.
Yep. And just to clarify a comment I made earlier, so you had mentioned the people that had helped you out, and one you mentioned um Frogfoot Quilts, which was
Christine Nelson.
Christine Nelson.
Yeah.
And all the different episodes of this show are on YouTube, and also you can get them on a podcast program if you know how to use
Quilting
podcasts.
Business Success.
So if you go to YouTube and you search Quilting Business Success, it'll come up, and it's a whole group of episodes. And so that's what I was referring to was episode 26. And so the next thing I was going to ask you is what do you see happening with your, with the income and so things are shifting for you right now, basically. You told us that you're decreasing how many hours you do serving at restaurants, and you're cutting back basically to the best times of the week, which is weekends. And so so the question that I would normally ask somebody is, what kind of impact does the quilting money and the control over the personal schedule have? What are you seeing that you're able to do now that you couldn't do before? Or just tell us how that's working.
I mean, I try to keep it as like a normal work day as possible. Like I try to work like 9 to 5 and I try to keep normal hours. And like I would love to have my machine actually out of my house. I would love to have its own spot just because being at home, like, I'm gonna sit down on the couch. Oh, I've been there for an hour. Oh, I'm just gonna take a nap, like whatever. Like that happens so easily to me.
I've got to just check what's on Instagram here.
Yeah. The other part too is I have cats, and a lot of people have issues with that. And like my cats don't go in my room. I have like the door always closed and everything, but still cat hair gets in because it lives on you. Um, but I don't know. Like, I mean, this morning it was nice. I could have all the windows open and have the cats outside a little bit, and
It is nice to be able to go to work with your slippers on.
yeah.
At this point, if you could if you could see, 5 years down the road, would you rather have a on your own property shop, or would you rather have something in town?
Um, I probably would want something that I'd have to commute to. Like I probably wouldn't want like like a shop that's on my property because I could easily just go inside and do something. Like I would love, I'm a social sewer. I don't know if you could tell, but I like to talk a lot.
I picked up on that a little bit.
Yeah. But and like my room is so tiny here that I can't have anyone hang out with me while I quilt. And then especially any of my friends that I do have, they're allergic to cats. They can't come over. So I would love a space that I could play around, have fun, do my quilting and stuff, where they also just sit and sew and we just hang out and do that together.
Personality wise, I could totally see you thriving in some little old fashioned downtown area where there's little cafes and bistros and a bookshop and the quilting shop, Yeah,
Yep.
I could see you loving that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's one of the hardest things probably about being at home and working from home is the isolation part because I do not I just like talking to people and doing things. Like I've been on the phone for someone once for like 5 hours and just we just talk and we're both working and doing our stuff and then it's like cool, we had a very productive day, but otherwise it would not have gone that way.
Hmm. Well, what's something that you wish someone would have told you when you first got started?
Um, each machine is its own thing and you need to learn it for itself. Like I mean, obviously I had problems with my machine, but I didn't know that there was so much that could be wrong that was something that I was going to need to fix. Like I just figured it worked before, so it's got to work now. Like it's, gonna be fine.
But it got transported. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
then I also like from being at Page's shop for 3 days. She has 5 machines, and all of them run with the toa gauge at 200, which is like crazy to think about. But all of them run at 200.
Yeah,
All of them.
they all leave here running at 200 also.
Right. So it's like what my machine likes is 175. And like that took a while to accept because I was like, I don't know. And also, like, when I was having so much like tension issues and I was like, I don't know what's going on, someone was like, well, why don't you change your thread? I'm like, I just bought $300 worth of thread. I am not changing my thread. I'm using this one. It's gonna like it. I gotta figure out why. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. If anybody listening to this episode finds herself in the same situation as Alex, I would just highly recommend getting the Gamble new owner training. Now that's not going to fix your machine if your machine needs adjusting or fixing, but the new owner training is like, to not have that
Yeah.
is is a serious challenge. I
There,
could say.
there's so much value in knowledge and knowing
Yeah.
how your
And the
machine
thing
works.
that's hard is when you've got mentors and you have some phenomenal mentors, but the lessons that they learned 20 years ago, I'm not saying they didn't go through similar challenges, but those lessons were so long ago that it's hard for them to put themselves in your shoes and realize what you might not know.
Yeah.
I like, it seems way overly elementary, but like when you go through the new owner training, it shows you how to take the bobbin case after you've wound the bobbin and tested it to make sure that it's not wound too tight, because it has that in there, like how to tell, is it wound too tight or too loose or just right? And then when you put it in the bobbin case, and how to take the thread through the little thing and how to test it on the toa gauge, and anybody who's been sewing for years is like, that's, let's just skip those videos. But not
Hmm.
everybody knows that stuff,
Yeah. Like yeah, none of that stuff I knew. Then it didn't help that once my machine was fixed, I didn't know what a good machine sounds like. So I was like, is something broken? Is something wrong? So I was constantly freaking out the entire time because it's an industrial machine. It's a loud machine. It always makes loud noises. So like, is this a good loud noise? Is this a bad loud noise?
So, Alex, we're getting ready to wind up things here. But for the people that are listening or watching, um, based on your couple of years of being a long armor, do you think if somebody is trying to get into to begin a quilting business themselves or is already in a long arming business, do you think this is a sustainable, just kind of give us your honest feeling. Is it a sustainable thing that anybody can do nowadays? Kind of give us your thoughts about that.
Um, I mean, yeah, like I think that it can be because I mean now that things have started to pick up, like I'm like I'm actually getting savings back, like backup good, instead of
Awesome.
paying month to month, like I'm actually getting my backup going again. So it's like, okay, this is actually working. I am actually making money. Um, I mean, I remember the first month that I paid my machine bill with my business money, just purely from my business money. I was like,
That
woohoo! Like,
felt amazing, didn't it?
yeah. I mean, it was sad because it just went away, but yeah. Um, I mean, it took a lot of, I mean, with my dad owning his own business and my friend having them own their own business and like uh they recently just sold it and now he just does like he looks at people's books and tell you what you're doing wrong and like how to fix it and how to clean things up and he just micromanages that kind of stuff. I had both of them take a look at it and walk me through it and I explained every detail and just made sure I had every single thing down to a science. And it was like there's an irrefutable fact, like this is what I need to do in order to make this work. And I had a clear game plan. Um, I mean, it broke my heart. Like, this was a while ago, but someone on like the Gamble Facebook page was like, I've been doing this for a couple of years and I've done some charity quilts, but I still haven't had anyone give me an actual quilt to like do. I was like, how have you not marketed? Like how, like
You know,
what? Yeah.
sometimes people they don't have the panic. So because oh, I've helped hundreds, maybe even thousands of people get machines and the deliveries and the training and all that stuff. And one of the things that often happens is a family household, they'll have the money to be able to just buy the machine without a loan. And when you don't have a loan payment that is putting a crimp in your household finances, there's really no urgent need
Yeah.
to find customers, which is fine because you probably just bought the machine because you wanted to play with it and do your own quilts. But
Hmm.
the situation that you found yourself in lit a fire under you to go out and make it happen. And there is so much power to having a fire lit under you
Yeah.
in all kinds of aspects of life.
Hmm.
And I think part of it too was just wanting to be creative and wanting to play around with it because there's so much that like I see and I watch videos, I'm like, I want to do that. I want to learn how to do that. How did they do this? Oh, that makes sense. I can try that and just doing more with it and learning more of that creative process because it is just it's different and having your own style. That's another thing too. If you like people will come to you if they like your style. Don't try to fit yourself in a bubble. I have I had like 11 quilts at a show at the local show last year. And it was so funny how many times people would be like, "Oh, I like that quilt. Oh, it's by Alex. Yep. All right. Oh, I like that quilt. Oh, also by Alex. Okay, cool." Like
Mhm.
just they recognized your style and every single one that they liked was mine. So like people will come to you if they like your style regardless of what you've done. Because I haven't been doing this a long time, but people go, I like what she's done, so I want her stuff.
I will agree with that 100%. One of my quilty friends is loved for the quilts that she does, and she's got a never-ending backlog of customers. And the people that don't like the work she does complain that she quilts them to death and they're as stiff as a board. But those aren't her customers. Her customers are the ones that love the work that she does.
Hmm.
So your customers begin to the ones that like the style that you impart to the quilt, they will be your customers. And nobody
Hmm.
can steal them away because they like the work that you
Yeah,
do.
I think there's so much truth in what you said. Each person has their own style, Alex, and I'm sure there's a certain portion of the population out there that would not prefer your quilts, but there's
Hmm.
a certain portion that, yeah,
They'll
they
even give you a ribbon.
yeah, that's right, that's right.
So Alex, as we wrap up here, let me just get from you one more time. If people wanted to visit your website, and I think it's a beautiful example of a quilter's website.
Yes.
It's very nice. And again, the URL to that was
Captivatingthreads.com.
captivatingthreads.com. Awesome. Do you have a Instagram or Facebook where people can find you?
Yep, same thing. Captivating Threads.
Captivating Threads. Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for sharing your story. And um,
It's been inspiring
it has been.
having a youngster on.
Well, we've had a few youngsters,
Yeah.
but the grit that you have shown as you've overcome some challenges, I hope it inspires some other people to put on their big girl pants and go out and make things happen. So awesome. We're very impressed. Well, I don't know if anybody can hear us or not, but it was a pleasure to have you on our program tonight,
Yeah.
Alex, and we look forward to seeing great things from you in the future.
Yeah, I'm excited. I have a show. I have a quilt going into the Minnesota show and the Madison show this year, so hoping for more.
All right.
Yes, yes.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you.